Following on from what I said about harmonic structure within the accompaniment of Psalmody, I'd like to talk about improvising, because improvising holds a very important place in the life of the monastic accompanist. Many people ask me, after they hear me accompany in the monastic setting, whether they could please have a copy of what I'm playing. This is anathema to me, because I improvise. And I think it's very important for the chant accompanist to develop that native organist skill of improvising and bring it into his understanding of accompanying plain song. The fluidity that you get by using improvised sounds as opposed to strict written notation is key, is very important as an accompanist. Now, if not everyone as an organist is a natural improviser, their liturgical setting soon demands that they think outside the boundaries of written notation. Improvising in a parish setting, for example, represents a significant starting place when approaching monastic accompaniment for the first time. Think of playing for the wedding and the bride being late, or after communion when the priest takes too long washing up. You have to fill that silence, and so you play, you improvise on the forthcoming hymn, or on the hymn that the choir's just sung, or on the introit of the day, or whatever it happens to be. Organists can usually draw on this native ability, as I say, to harmonise a melodic line and give variations on themes. Now, by its very nature, square notation is an elementary tool. Through the process of saturation alone, the organist coming into monastic life will soon understand both the basics and the particulars, the minutiae of square notation. But it is very different to Western notation, and the two should be seen as quite separate languages. When it comes to harmonising chant for the first time, it's no bad thing to exercise your knowledge of Western notation. So for several months I wrote out my harmonisations. So seeing the modes translated into a system I knew and understood was rather like learning a foreign language through my own native tongue. Without that native tongue I would have no yardstick. And of course eventually the two musical languages stood independently. I was able to abandon the laborious practice of writing harmonies out. I went on from that stage to developing my own harmonic shorthand. This shorthand served to prompt me through my own sound world, I suppose. So I'd arrive at the organ console 10 or 15 minutes or so before each office, before the 5-minute bell. And I made notes in my office books, in the hymn book, in the antiphonal, in the psalter. And that would include notes of any delicate registration changes, any starting notes, and so forth. So if we take, for example, the beginning of the Salve Regina, to do that. So very crudely speaking, I'm in the key, I shudder at the thought, but I'm in the key of D minor. So I put DM over that first square note, D, M, D minor. Think of the Sa and the Ve of the Salve. So over the Sa would be D minor. Over the Ve would be a little 1 to say that I'm going to go to the first inversion of D minor. So it would be. And what I love to do in plain song accompaniment is this little tool. Or the other way. In various different guises. The other way. And when that movement goes up, I would define that in my shorthand with a little upward arrow above that notation in which I do that upward movement, and of course a downward arrow when I go the opposite way. So you end up with a D minor, under the first note, and then when I go sa, I've got the upward arrow to say I'm making that movement up to the first inversion of they. So it's D minor, root position, and then movement towards the first inversion to the first inversion. And then for the Regina, the first note of that phrase, I would put in brackets a little 7, the 7th. And then I go to G minor first inversion, so I go GM1. GM1, and then GM for G minor root. A minor, 7, and then D minor 1, and then I'd stick on D minor 1, GM, A minor 7, AM 7, D minor. So that's just a little flavour as to how I would develop that little harmonic shorthand. That's obviously an overhang from leaning on modern Western notation. After I did that for another 6 months or so, I was then able to get away from using that shorthand, and I would just look at what mode I was in and accompany by using improvisatory tools. So what I'm really suggesting is that you crack into your own native understanding of improvisation as an organist and use that to begin exploring your harmonic structure. I always think very strongly that as an artist, whatever I'm doing, whether it's playing the organ, playing the piano, singing, drawing, calligraphy, writing, whatever it happens to be, that I have to set a boundary, and then I flourish within that boundary. If I don't set that boundary, then it goes all over the place. It's like a jelly, and the mould being taken off it, it just goes splurge. So the boundary is very important. So your boundary is the mode, not playing any notes outside the mode. And also gentleness, being passive. That's your boundary. But then within that, you can explore